Hello, brothers and sisters. Hopefully this one won't be as long as my other ones have been. There hasn't been as much time in between either. I'm hoping to post more often, but as we all know, life gets in the way of living. We'll start out with the reading today from the Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 23, verse 35 to 43. And the people stood beholding. By the way, this is after Christ is hanging on the cross, crucified. And the people stood beholding. And the rulers also with him derided him, saying, He saved others, let him save himself. If he be Christ, the chosen of God. And the soldiers also mocked him, coming to him and offering him vinegar, and saying, If thou be king of the Jews, save thyself. And a subscription was also written over him in the letters of Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. This is the King of the Jews. And one of the malefactors, thieves, which were hanged, railed on him, saying, If thou be Christ, save thyself and us. But the other, answering, rebuked him, saying, Dost thou not fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds. But this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say to you, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. This has been the word of the Lord. Inspired, infallible, and inerrant book of God. So, as the title says, which thief are you? Which malefactor are you, depending on your translation? Are you the one that, rather than recognizing his own sin, blames God for your suffering? Are you the one who says there is no God? If there is, there wouldn't be suffering in the world. I wouldn't be suffering. Or are you the thief on the right that says, God, I am a sinner. Forgive my sin and lead me to redemption? I wonder sometimes of which one we are. We know where the secular world sits. The greater world does not believe in God, and if they do mention God, they're blaming him for suffering and using an excuse for their sins. They come up with their own moral code that they feel is moral, other than one handed down by God. And then on the other side, that's where we should be. We should be recognizing our own sin, taking account for our own lives. The suffering in our lives are from our decisions. Decisions we made either in the present or in the past. God is not responsible for our suffering, but He allows it in order that we can see how we must grow, and so that we turn to Him for help. And with this help, we see that our suffering is easier to bear. Answers we seek are right in front of us and are timely. In my past, recent past, I will say I've argued with God. Why are you allowing this to happen? Why are you allowing me to suffer? Did I do something wrong? Am I being punished? Why are things going this way? I think if I'm doing your will, why are things not working out? And the more I argue, of course, the more I blame Him, the more I separate myself from Him. And the more I did, the more things went down the drain, and the worse things got, and the worse the suffering seemed, and the more stressed out and out of sorts things seemed. Especially in the last year. I thought I was growing closer to God, but yet felt He was being undue, allowing the suffering that I was bearing. And it is my own fault of the suffering that I felt. I put it upon myself. God does not put suffering upon us. He allows the suffering, like I said. However, we make it worse on ourselves than it needs to be. When I start leaning on God, saying, guide me, Lord, through this. Give me the answers I seek. Show me the direction I must travel. And it opened up to me. The suffering didn't go away, but the burden was lifted. As Christ says, my burden is light. Give me your suffering. He means it when He says it. And that's what's happened for me. There's still a lot that I must bear. There's still many things in my life that I'm having to deal with that are not easy. But they're easier. I see the answers in front of me. I'm having solutions come up out of nowhere. I've taken ownership to the decisions I've made. I've understood that I put suffering upon myself when I didn't need to, or made it worse when it was. Obviously, some things we feel are out of our control, but they're not out of God's control. So if we give our lives to God, then we don't have to worry about things that are out of our control. They're in God's control. We only have to worry about things that are in our control. So in that way, yes, the suffering does feel lighter. Something we really have to meditate on, pray about, and discern. What are we doing to make our suffering worse? How are we taking it? How are we receiving that suffering and processing it? Are we asking God for help? Are we turning to Him? Are we allowing Him to send the Holy Spirit to guide us? Are we listening? Or are we saying, well, I'm listening, but I'm not hearing, and things are getting worse, and woe's me, God, why are you doing this? It's our doing. God won't do anything to make us worse, but He'll do what He can to make things better. So, I hope this has enlightened you a bit. Hopefully, if you're going through something, you will lean on God. Remember, our suffering is temporary, and God will always show us the path to peace and comfort. Until then, God bless. Deuce Vault.